Hey, what's going on, guys? I hope you all are doing well today. Elliot here, and welcome back to The Fragrance Well. So I did a video going over my best pickups for the year of 2023. I decided to go ahead and do my worst pickups for 2023. I was kind of debating on whether or not I really wanted to do this video, but I decided to do it for three reasons. Number one, I spent the time putting the list together. Number two, it's a way for me to really show you guys more of what I acquired over the course of the year. And number three, it's kind of a congratulations to myself, or a consolation to myself that I did not buy a ton of fragrances that I just absolutely regret getting. Matter of fact, out of these 20 worst purchases, there's only a handful of them that I really could have just done without. So I think that's a good thing. Most of these I kind of had to put on here mainly for technical reasons, or I just kind of had to fill the list, and they just didn't beat out a lot of the other ones that I purchased. So we're gonna go over 20 of them, so let's not waste too much time. A lot of fragrances to cover here, but I'm gonna be fairly brief in talking about them. So before we get started, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you do like the content, and hit that bell icon to enable notifications so you can be notified when I upload new videos. Let's get into it. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get the few out of the way, the ones that I really just could have done without. Yeah, they are all blind buys, so anytime you're doing blind buys, you always kind of run this risk. But anyway, first up, from the house of Narciso Rodriguez, it's Bleu Noir Parfum. Narciso Rodriguez, For Him Bleu Noir Parfum. Now, this might be a surprise to some people. I know this fragrance is actually pretty successful within the community, but for whatever reason, just the way it comes together, I don't know, I just don't like it. I don't think it's poorly done. I just think with all the notes in it that I really think I should be a fan of, the way it comes together just doesn't really do anything for me. So unfortunately, it just doesn't really work. I have worn it like maybe twice, and I have put it in the back of my shelf and completely forgot about it. So for that reason alone, it pretty much lands on the worst list easily, because I don't wear it. I don't really care that much for it. And for whatever reason, it hasn't warmed up to me. Really nice iris fragrance overall, but it just doesn't excite me. So I got better iris scents basically. So because of that, it's gonna fall under one of the worst purchases of 2023 for me. So once again, from Narciso Rodriguez, it's For Him Bleu Noir Parfum. Next up, coming from the house of Mont Blanc, it's Explorer Platinum. Mont Blanc Explorer Platinum. Now, I actually did a full review on this. I think overall it is a solid fragrance. The reason I'm gonna put it under the worst 2023 is if I had had a chance to smell it in stores, which I thought I would, before I blind bought this, I would have just left it alone. Again, it's not a bad scent, features some violet leaf primarily, but I haven't really worn it too many times, and it's not one I'm gonna reach for very much. And honestly, it's just not that impressive. And like I said, if I had smelled it in stores or seen it in stores, which I still don't think I have seen it in stores, I wouldn't have bothered buying this. But I pretty much, full transparency, I kind of just bought it for the channel, but I could have done without it. So once again, from the house of Mont Blanc, it's Explorer Platinum. All right, next one's from the house of Frank Olivier, and this is oudVanille. Frank Olivier oudVanille. This one was pretty much part of a cheap haul, one of my few cheap hauls that I did over the course of the year. Listen, it does smell good. It's basically trying to be a fruity rose oud type fragrance, even though there is no oud in here, it's phantom oud. There might not even be real rose in this fragrance, but it pretty much what it smells like, fruity rose oud type fragrance. The problem with this one is I have I have Bond number 9 Nomad, which is pretty much a fruity rose oud fragrance, and it runs laps around this. It's quite similar to it. So because I have something that's far better, why would I even bother wearing this one? So that's pretty much why this one falls under the worst, and it's a purchase I could have done without. So once again, from the house of Frank Olivier, this is oudVanille. All right, next one's coming from the house of Hugo Boss. This is the Scent Private Accord. Hugo Boss, the Scent Private Accord. So the reason I even picked this up was this was a fragrance I learned about when I first started consuming fragrance content. It was one that was talked about quite a bit since then. I think because it had just gotten discontinued or whatever. So I really wanted to get my nose on it. Now, if I had gotten this at that time, I probably would have loved this. But by the time I had gotten this, I had gotten my nose on a lot of really fantastic fragrances. And frankly, this one does not match up to those. So I honestly could have done without it. It was a little bit of a letdown by the time I got it. I do like it a little bit better than I did when I first got it. And you know, I'm not saying it's a bad fragrance. If anything, it's a really nice designer scent, but compared to the other stuff I have, I wouldn't reach for this very frequently, so I could have done without it. Once again, from Hugo Boss, this is the scent Private Accord. Alright guys, so the rest of these are not scents I would consider fragrances I could have done without. I don't mind having them, they just kind of fall below everything else that I have in my collection in terms of how much I like it, mostly for technical reasons. But these are in no particular order, so we're just going to run through them. Next one, from the house of Carolina Herrera. This is CH Pasion. Carolina Herrera CH Men Pasion. Now, when I first got this earlier in the year, this would have been on the top of my list. But as I've just acquired more and more stuff, it just kind of kept falling and falling and falling because it just doesn't stack up to the rest of them. Great scent, really nice woody, slightly sweet, kind of incensey resinous kind of fragrance, but it just doesn't match up to a lot of other stuff from a quality standpoint and an interest standpoint. I do think this is good. I'm glad I have it. It just kind of has to fall under the bottom 20 for those reasons. Once again, from Carolina Herrera, this is CH Men Pasion. All right, next one's coming from the house of Menthol. This is Intense Cafe. Menthol Intense Cafe. It is intense, but it doesn't quite smell like coffee, but it's pretty much a latte kind of smell. Really, the only reason this is under the bottom 20 is it was more so bought for my wife. I expected her to wear it more than I do, and she does. So it's not one I would reach for that much. I'd rather smell this on a woman than I would on me, but I have worn it. I would wear it, but for that reason alone, kind of has to fall under the bottom 20 because it's not going to get a whole lot of attention from me. So once again, from the house of Menthol, it's Intense Cafe. All right, and another one from the house of Menthol. This is Oud Tobacco. Menthol Oud Tobacco. Now, I really do like this scent. I think it's very interesting. I think the name is a little bit misleading. Don't really get a lot of oud. There is some tobacco kind of in the dry down, but primarily it's a ton of tonka bean and spices. But it's another one I just don't reach for as much as I've reached for a lot of the other purchases I got over the course of the year. So from a technicality standpoint, I might as well put it in the bottom 20 if it's one that I don't reach for that often. It also is just a very strong, commanding smell. You have to really be committed to this, and that kind of knocks it down a little bit too. And because of the particular smell that it has, not necessarily something I want to smell like that often. So once again, from the house of Menthol, it's Oud Tobacco. All right, next one's from the house of Hugo Boss. Also, this is the Scent Absolute. Hugo Boss, the Scent Absolute. Now, I do like this one a lot better than I like Private Accord. I actually really enjoy the smell of this. Kind of reminds me almost of like a fruity cake, kind of just kind of hiding there in the background mixed with some cocoa powder. But it's another one I just don't reach for that often. Really, this kind of grade or level of designer fragrances is not something I really reach for that much. So for that reason alone, it's gonna fall under the bottom 20. So once again, from the house of Hugo Boss, this is the Scent Absolute. All right, next one's coming from the house of Emporio Armani. This is Stronger With You Absolutely. Stronger With You Absolutely from Emporio Armani. I probably just pissed off a lot of people. How could you dare you put that under your bottom 20? Look, I get it. This is a favorite for a lot of people, and the fragrance is really, really good. I'm not gonna deny it, but if I'm being honest, really the only reason I purchased this was to really just kind of understand what the whole Stronger With You craze is and why so many fragrance companies are copying it. Once I got this one, which I would say this is probably, at least from description alone, one of the better ones to kind of understand that, I got it. You know, I could understand. I'm like, okay, I see why other companies are doing what they're doing right now. But it's not one I wear a lot. Nice fragrance, like I said, overall, but again, it's just a scent profile I don't go for that often. I've only worn it a couple of times. You can see the bottle pretty much looks brand new. That's pretty much because it basically is. I might have sprayed this a total of 10 times. But anyway, it is a good scent. I'm not mad about having it. It just doesn't get a lot of wear, so it falls into the bottom 20. Once again, from Emporio Armani, stronger with you, absolutely. All right, next one's coming from the House of Bulgari, and we have got Oud Neroli. Bulgari Man, Oud Neroli. So as far as I know, this scent is discontinued. But I was able to get my nose on it at a duty-free store, and I really, really liked it. And I saw that it was actually still available pretty easily, in fact, on Fragrance Buy for a really good price. So I just picked it up on another haul to kind of, I guess, fill out the price, so to speak, because it didn't cost that much. Overall, I think it's a really nice, fresh Neroli fragrance. And since it's discontinued, I figured I would just get my hands on it. But compared to the other stuff, it doesn't stack up that well. But also, I haven't had this long, haven't really been able to wear it much, so kind of had to just put it down into the bottom 20 because I just couldn't replace it with something that I knew I liked better at this time. So once again, from the House of Bulgari, this is Oud Neroli. All right, next one's from the House of Francesca Bianchi, and this is Lost in Heaven. Francesca Bianchi, Lost in Heaven. It hurt to put this one in the bottom 20 because I think this fragrance is fantastic. So complex, an ode to the old style masculine fragrance, particularly for a night out in my opinion. The only reason I decided to put this in the bottom 20 is it's a very specific fragrance for me at least. I would pretty much only wear this for very specific occasions, and therefore that kind of makes it less useful, and doesn't have as much utility for me. So as a result, it's probably not going to get as many wears as many of the other things I purchased over the course of last year. So for that reason alone, I put it in the bottom 20. Once again, from the House of Francesca Bianchi, this is Lost in Heaven. All right, next one's coming from the House of Xerjoff, and this is Erba Pura. Xerjoff's Erba Pura. Now, I like this scent. I think it's really well done. I can understand why some people might not like it. It is kind of obnoxious in a way, very kind of boozy, sweet, fruity fragrance. The main reason this is gonna fall under the bottom 20 is I pretty much bought it for my wife to wear because I knew she would wear it more than I do, and she does. So it's just a fragrance that's not gonna get a lot of use out of me. So for that reason alone, it might as well be under the bottom 20. A fragrance I'm not gonna wear much, I don't see why I would not say that that's gonna be better than something that I would wear a lot. So for that reason alone, in the bottom 20, once again, Xerjoff, Erba Pura. All right, we got another one from the House of Mont Blanc, and this is Legend Eau de Parfum. Mont Blanc Legend Eau de Parfum. I don't dislike the scent. I think it's very, very good. Kind of their richer version on their take of Abercrombie & Fitch Fierce, but it's one I haven't worn a lot. It's one I'm probably not going to wear a lot. Is an easy wear though, but where I would wear this more than likely would be to go get my hair cut at the barbershop or something like that. Other than that, maybe just kind of a quick wear, but I haven't worn it much and I have had this for a while, so it's gonna fall in the bottom 20 for that reason. Once again, from the House of Mont Blanc, this is Legend Eau de Parfum. All right, next one's coming from the House of Givenchy, and this is Pie. Givenchy Pie. Now, this was also a part of a cheap haul, if I'm not mistaken. And look, I really like this scent. It wasn't a blind buy. I had smelled it in stores because you can still find this in stores, which is kind of cool. Main reason I picked it up was I would consider it kind of a classic scent in a way. And I kind of like having some classic scents in my collection, even if it's ones I don't wear much. But naturally, if it's going to be something I don't wear that much, how can I rank it outside of the worst 20 pickups, so to speak? So that's why this one falls on the list. It's just one I haven't worn much. I don't really plan to wear much. I think I've only worn it once, and that might have been to just kind of sit around the house. So it probably wasn't even an actual wear, but still a good fragrance. I don't dislike it, and I'm not upset that I got it. Once again, from the House of Givenchy, this is Pie. All right, might as well get the other Givenchy out of the way that's on the list. This is Gentleman Reserve Privee. Givenchy Gentleman Reserve Privee. I once again probably just pissed off a lot of people. How dare you put that in the bottom 20? Well, here's the reason. Now, I think this fragrance is amazing. When I first got my nose on it, I really, really liked it. I unfortunately did not get it when it was kind of first available on discounters, and it took a really long time for it to become available again. Let's just say by the time it did and I actually got it, frankly, I had gotten my nose as well as acquired a lot of other things that I just find way more interesting than the Gentleman line up to this point. And as a result, this didn't get a whole lot of wear once I did get it because I was just interested in other stuff. So unfortunately, it's been doing a lot more sitting on the shelf than it has been getting wears. And frankly, I don't see myself wearing it that often in the future. So it's kind of like pretty much just a collector's piece at this point. So unfortunately, it falls under the worst 20 fragrances I've required over the course of 2023. But that's the only reason. I still think it's an amazing scent. I'm still a fan of the Gentleman line. It's just a line I don't wear that much anymore. So once again from Givenchy, this is Gentleman Reserve Privee. All right, next up from the house of Tommy Bahama, this is Saint Kitts. Tommy Bahama Saint Kitts. Now, as you probably know, these Tommy Bahama fragrances are all cheap, great summertime fragrances, all eau de cologne, so you can just pretty much spray them all over yourself. And listen, I actually really do like this one. Now they actually, all my Tommy Bahama fragrances, I only got 2 of them. They've all been blind buys because for whatever reason, I've seen them in stores and I just never stopped to smell any of them. I don't know why. But anyway, yeah, this one I really like. Has a very nice star fruit kind of tropical feel to it. A little bit more salty in nature. So very interesting scent. And it does wear like an eau de cologne. I mean, it's a great summertime fragrance. But because of that alone, I literally would only use it kind of in the summertime, really for just kind of passing days, so to speak. So as a result, it's definitely not going to get that much wear, and it is far from my best summertime fragrances, so it might as well be on this list. Once again, from Tommy Bahama, this is Saint Kitts. All right, and one more from Tommy Bahama, it's Saint Barts. Tommy Bahama, Saint Barts. Now, I'm not as impressed with this one as I am with Saint Kitts. This one's kind of more straightforward, just kind of clean, almost fresh out the shower, aquatic summertime fragrance, very fresh fragrance. I can see why this one is very popular. You're talking about super easy to wear, but I actually haven't worn this yet because I did acquire this like maybe a month and a half ago, and it's been relatively cool, and I haven't had a chance to break this out yet, so I will try this out this next coming summer. So since I haven't worn it at all, I can't really say it's better than anything else, but also it's a Tommy Bahama. They're relatively cheap. While they smell nice, they're relatively cheap. So why would I rank this higher than a lot of the other fragrances I've got? Once again, from Tommy Bahama, this is Saint Barts. All right, next one is from Get Right Fragrances. This is Clean Team, Cashmere, or the Purple Label. Get Right Fragrances, Clean Team, Cashmere / the Purple Label. Now, I did a full review on this. I do think this fragrance is very nice. It's very different from what I have. Basically kind of a tropical, fruity cashmere fragrance. The reason I put this on the bottom 20 list is because I can't get over how bland the dry down is compared to the rest of the fragrance. When you get into the deep dry down of this, it just goes flat for me, unfortunately, and it's kind of hard for me to let that go. So for that reason alone, I decided this one pretty much needs to be in the bottom 20 because I don't have too many fragrances that I can really say that about, where the dry down is so flat that it just brings the overall rating, if you will, of the fragrance down. But other than that, the opening in the mid of this fragrance I think is very enjoyable. So once again, from the house of Get Right Fragrances, this is Clean Team, Cashmere / the Purple Label. Next one's from Carolina Herrera, and this is Chic For Men. Carolina Herrera, Chic For Men. This one I also would kind of place into that classics fragrance category. Really good, just Homme style fragrance. Kind of fruity and woody, so to speak. Haven't worn it in a while, but what I do like about this one is it just kind of falls into that classic category of fragrances again. And I do pretty much would only wear this for work, but I got stuff that's just a lot better than it, so it's not gonna get as many wears, but for that reason alone, it's got to fall into the bottom 20 because I know it's not going to be one I reach for very often, but I really do like this stuff. And if it was really popular back when it kind of first came out, I can see why it's probably one I would have worn then. So once again, from Carolina Herrera, it's Chic For Men. All right, and finally we've got one from Rasasi, and this is Hawas. Rasasi Hawas. So the reason this one kind of falls down into the bottom 20 is because I kind of had to fill up the bottom 20. And also, as much as I do actually enjoy this fragrance, even though I'm not the biggest fan of overly artificial smelling scents, this one just comes together in a way I do like, but it is rather juvenile for what I would typically go for in a fragrance. So let's just say it's a style I wouldn't wear that often, and I haven't worn it that often, but I would wear it again. So, you know, it's not a regretful buy. I would definitely pull this out every now and then, depending on where I'm going or depending on what my mood is, but it's gonna be one that gets minimal wears from me. So that's why it's in the bottom 20. From the House of Wasasi, this is Hawas. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for this video. We got through all 20 of them, and hopefully they didn't take too long. Feel free to let me know down in the comments below what is at least one purchase that you got this year that you definitely regretted getting. As I showed, you know, there weren't too many that really fit into that mold, thank goodness. I just kind of had to fill up a bottom 20 if I was gonna do a bottom 20 video, but only a couple of them I really just could have done without and really kind of regret buying, so to speak, and I think that's a good thing. Don't waste your time buying a bunch of fragrances that you ultimately don't like, even if they're ones you don't wear. If you really appreciate what they are, I would say it's not the worst thing to have them in your collection, but even with that, you don't want to have too many of them. I appreciate you guys watching all the way into the end. Remember to be well and smell well, and I will see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.